Today on Horror Lives Here, we'll be reviewing a movie from 2004 titled The Village. Now, The Village, while it is a horror, mystery, thriller style of movie, most importantly, The Village is ultimately a love story. It's a love story about a woman and a man. That man falls under some unfortunate circumstances, and a woman is forced to face her fears and go beyond the unknown to save the man that she loves. Now, the movie starts out with the funeral of one of the town's elders unfortunately dying as a child from a disease that many of them who were born in the village in Covington Woods have never seen before. But as you will find out, the elders who founded the village actually do know what is going on, but unfortunately there was nothing that they could do to save the other elder's child. Now, this movie has a star-studded cast, one of the most impressive cast for a movie in 2004. Some of the people who feature in the movie are Sigourney Weaver, William Hurt, Joaquin Phoenix, Bryce Dallas Howard, Adrian Brody, Brendan Gleeson, Sherry Jones, Cecilia Weston, Judy Greer, Jesse Eisenberg, and more. So if you're a movie savant, then you know that many of those people can entirely hold down a solo role by themselves. But with them combined, you couldn't help but have a phenomenal movie, which is what The Village was. So after the funeral, the village gets together for a meal, and you can kind of see how the life is for the people in the village. It's very Amish style. There isn't any electricity, even though, mind you, they're living in the present day. So this movie was filmed in 2004, so it's safe to assume that they're living in present day 2000s, early 2000s. But for the inhabitants of the village, the people who were born there, as far as they're concerned, it could be the 1800s, the 1700s. Their way of life is very old-fashioned and traditional. And if you've seen Midsummer, you definitely get Midsummer vibes from the village. Even though the village was almost 20 years before Midsummer, you can look at the people eating together, you can see the offering, and you know how there is a structure and there's leaders and elders, and it's very Midsummerish, right? Or should I say Midsummer is very villageist. Now, unfortunately, there is an inhabitant of the town, a young man named Noah Percy, and Noah has some type of mental disability and something that is not mentioned that any of the other children have, and so people know that Noah could be considered special. He's not normal, he's not necessarily right. However, they do live with him, and he's managed to survive this far without any present day medical treatment or medical care. And so as the movie goes along, it shows the pretty much old-fashioned lifestyle, them using well water to clean dishes, having sheep, farm animals, and it shows something else that people in the village have been raised to fear, which is the color red. There is no red in the village. There's barely any burgundy or maroon other than what could be a wood, cherry, oak type of color. But the specific color red has been taught to be avoided and feared in the village, which we'll get into later during the review. Now, among the village, they have these watchtowers and these guidelines, like a line of demarcation, like the DMZ in North and South Korea. And this line is where you do not cross. If you're a villager, this is where the woods starts. And if you are outside of the village in the woods, this is where the line ends for you. Now, the interesting thing is that the elders of the village know the deep, true, dark secrets, but the people of the village do not. So you never really see the elders worried when they're near the line of demarcation or when something happens in the village, such as a young animal being skinned and kind of being mutilated and just being left there, because the elders know, well, what appears to be is not really what is, but the people of the village don't know. The elders have indoctrinated the young people of the village for what they believe to be a noble cause, but the people of the village were not able to form their own decision. And so as the movie progresses, you have Joaquin Phoenix, phenomenal actor, phenomenal. He comes in to the elders of the village and requests to go to the towns, not only because of the death at the beginning of the movie, but because he believes that the towns have medicines and certain technologies that can help Noah Percy and cure his mental ailment. But of course, the elders completely reject it. And then Sigourney Weaver, which would be Lucius's mother in the movie, right? Joaquin Phoenix is Lucius. And so Alice and Lucius have a conversation about how you should kind of accept how things are in the village, and that's just the way of life. And while it may be noble for you to want to go to the towns are very very dangerous place and they will hurt you just like they've hurt your father. And Alice pretty much warns Lucius that it's not worth it. In the meantime, they find another mutilated animal that has been left there deliberately for the children to see it. This is not something that was tossed into the woods. This was tossed in the open so that the children can see it. Now, as we progress deeper into the movie, Judy Greer, who plays Kitty Walker, which would be Ivy Walker's sister, has taken a fondness after Lucius, right? The same guy who wanted to go into the town. But Lucius does not feel the same way about Kitty. And Kitty is ready to be married. She's ready to have a husband and ready to be a wife. And she goes and confesses her love to Lucius. And if you've seen this scene, this scene is absolutely hilarious. She is spilling her heart out. I love you like the day is long. I love you like the moon in the sky. And Lucius is just looking at her just with the most blank, empty stare. And then you don't even hear him reject her. You just see the next scene of her crying in the bed. Absolutely hilarious. Like, one of the most funny scenes, and Ivy Walker, which is Bryce Dallas Howard, is comforting her during her heartbreak. And so as you fast forward a little bit more, some of the young kids in the town, right, some of the boys, the teenage boys, they do fear the woods. They believe that something dangerous is in the woods, but you know, they just have to tiptoe on the line. It's right. It's like that line in the sand. Don't cross it. Well, I didn't cross it. I just put my pinky toe right up to the edge, right? So this is what they've been doing. They've been standing on top of a log with their back faced to the woods, just seeing how long their mind would let them last there, seeing how long they could mentally bear to be with their back faced to the woods with the dangerous creatures in the woods. And then as soon as they hear a noise, they all run back to the town. Fast forwarding a little bit further, you can see Noah Percy and his interaction with some of the boys, right? And the people in the town, right, they don't really pick on him, but they do kind of treat him tough. And mind you, he's much stronger than them. He has much more strength than them, and so he does kind of ruffle up some of the boys, but nonetheless, he's friends with Ivy Walker. And so Ivy comes and chastises him a little bit, tells him, hey, you know, stop playing around so rough, stop playing so tough. And they have a conversation and they run off into some type of pasture or valley. Now, mind you, Ivy Walker, Noah Percy, and Lucius Hunt, they all know each other since childhood. They're all friends. And Ivy is blind. She can't see anything. She was blind since she was a young girl. Noah Percy has mental ailments. He's not like the other kids. And Lucius is very reserved, very quiet, but he is very observant. And Lucius sees that in Noah's hand, he has the forbidden color, right? The color that we don't speak of, right? The color that should not be. And Lucius knows that that color is nowhere in the village. So he knows that Noah could have only gotten that color from the forest. Now, mind you, Ivy Walker is able to sense people in their colors. Maybe not everybody, but the people she cares for, she can see a color around them, like some type of aura, and she can see a color around Lucius, and this will be very important as we progress further into the video. So once again, Lucius goes before the elders and says, since Noah has been found with the forbidden color and he has wandered into the woods and gotten the forbidden color and came back unharmed, Lucius believes that he can be innocent, pure of heart, and go into the woods and the creatures will not harm him, so that he can go into the towns and get the items that he needs that could prevent the death that happened in the beginning and that could possibly help Noah. Once again, the town elders admire his bravery and courage, but again, they say no. And Lucius's mother, Alice, further elaborates that the towns are just too dangerous, and Lucius points to a box that his mother has been hiding, which will be explained later on. And in that box are a lot of deep and dark secrets that Lucius's mother keeps only for herself. Now, as we fast forward a little bit, we can see that Lucius goes into the woods. He is responsible for guarding the perimeter or placing markers on the perimeter, but one day he's wearing the safe color, which is yellow, and the evil or bad color, the forbidden color, which is red, and he's wearing the safe color as he guards near the wood line. But one day Lucius decides to test his luck, and so he walks into the forest, deeper into the forest than he's ever gone before. He picks some red berries and he comes back with those berries. Everything seems to have gone well. There has been no incident, and so the day goes on, Lucius comes and has a conversation with Ivy Walker about his plans and what he wants to do. Mind you, they care for each other and they're friends at this point in time. And so as they're having the conversation and things wrap up, one of the guard towers feels a bump. And the person guarding the guard tower, who is wearing the safe color, looks down and sees his worst fear. One of the creatures from the woods has come into the village. Immediately, panic sets in. He gets up, he starts to ring the bell, and this causes chaos in the village. Everyone is looking for their loved ones. People are running to lock up the home because they have no clue what these creatures are truly capable of. So far, their only experience with these creatures have been stories and myths and rumors and legends and tales. And so as far as they're concerned, these creatures could have magical abilities, superhuman strength and speed. So they are scrambling and rushing like mad to get into their homes, find their children, find their loved ones, and keep each other safe. So what happens is the creature comes into the town and there's a mad rush. Lucius, being the brave man he is helping others before himself. He's helping people lock up their doors, lock up their home, lock up their blinds and things like that. And Ivy Walker, for some reason, has faith that Lucius will come and make sure that she's okay. If you see this part in the movie, she is not listening to Kitty. She is not listening to anyone. Kitty is begging her to come into the cellar. Come into the cellar, please. It's dangerous. You're going to get killed. And Ivy just looks back and says, no. She holds her hand out. And as it looks like the creature is just about to approach her and end her, Lucius comes out of nowhere, grabs her hand, slams the door, locks it, and they run into the cellar. It's one of the most romantic parts of the movie. And early on, it just kind of shows Ivy's faith in Lucius and also shows Lucius's faith in Ivy, because Ivy believed that he would ensure that she was okay, and Lucius believed that Ivy would not just run and hide and lock herself away without knowing that he also would be coming for her and he also would be okay. And so they both run into the cellar. They're hiding down there with the family and it's very tense, but it passes. Now these creatures, they really don't do any damage. They have marked a red stripe on the door, but they haven't done any damage. And when I was young, this is 2004, so when I was young watching this movie, I didn't really grasp what was going on, but I've seen this movie like 5 times. It's one of my favorite movies. And when you watch it now, it makes sense. Before I spoil it, it makes sense why these creatures wouldn't be really doing damage to the homes, to the property, right, to the water, to the food and things like that, but they just put a red mark on the door. Now there's a town meeting and the elders are trying to figure out, well, what could have happened? And Lucius, with tears in his eyes, admits that he went into the forest and he may have disturbed the creatures and he's deadly sorry, and he wasn't doing it to be selfish, he was doing it to be brave and face his fears. And Edward Walker commends him on his bravery. And so after that, there is a family feast, a village feast, and they place an offering in the woods, a slab of meat. They're both wearing the sacred color. Now after Kitty Walker's fierce rejection, she does manage to find some other guy to marry her, a man named Kristoff. Right now, how she had all this love and just was over the moon for Lucius, and then a month or a few weeks later, she's getting married to Kristoff. Who knows? Maybe she was just desperate to be married to someone. But nonetheless, there's a wedding celebration, and here you can kind of see Lucius's mother Alice and Edward Walker. There is some tension there, and not in a bad way. There is some pent-up sexual tension. There is some pent-up romantic tension. Edward he is cold as a stone. He cannot express himself at all. Yes, he is married to Tabitha, which is Ivy Walker's mother, but nonetheless, if you've seen the scene and during the wedding, you can tell that the way he talks to Alice is not like how he talks to all the other women. And you've seen him interact with other people. So there's definitely something there. Not saying that he's going to have an affair on his wife or anything like that, but there's definitely something there that makes him feel very awkward among Alice. And Alice knows that he's married, and Alice also has some coming on or coming forward to him in a subtle way. During the wedding celebration, there's another alarm because the creatures from the woods have come in and have hanged meat or some type of animal carcass. It's almost like they rejected the offering for whatever reason. And this is interesting and leaves the elders surprised. You'll find out why very soon, because none of the elders expected this to happen. And so Alice and Edward are having a conversation trying to figure out, well, amongst the creatures, why could this be? This is not something that was discussed. And you start to kind of piece the pictures together. Wait a minute. What do you mean? They're being vague for the sake of the audience, but it's like, well, what do you mean? Why are you confused? Like, why is this all of a sudden a surprise? And as you fast forward, and during the night, Ivy Walker's sleeping and she hears a noise. She comes out to her porch and she sits on the porch. And here is kind of where Ivy and Lucius confess their love for each other. And it's a very beautiful love scene. Ivy is pretty much the chatterbox, even though, mind you, she's blind. And Bryce does a great job of being a blind woman. So mind you, she's blind, but nevertheless, she's the chatterbox, right? She's talking and she can't really stop talking. It's almost like her nerves around Lucius. And then Lucius, who never says anything, kind of just shuts Ivy up and says, how much he can never stop thinking about her and how much he cares for her and how much, he just cannot get her off of his mind and how she means everything to him and how he longs for her. It was a very romantic scene. And so kind of after that, they kind of confessed their love for each other, and shortly thereafter their plans to be married. Now mind you, Ivy could not be married before her sister Kitty, the one who was rejected by Lucius in the beginning. And so now that Kitty is married and Ivy says that, hey, she's free to be married, she goes to talk to her sister to say, hey, I understand that Lucius rejected you, but he's very interested in me and he loves me and I'm interested in him and I love him, and would that be okay? Right? And this is a respectful thing to do, even, today I would think so, but who knows? And so Kitty approves it, and it's just happy and joy and elation. And then the word spreads around the village. Ivy Walker is to be married to Lucius Hunt. Everyone's happy. Everyone's excited. They're thrilled, except for one person. Noah Percy. Now, this scene right here, to me, is what makes The Village. Okay, this is the scene, and you could not do this with bad actors. Adrian Brody and Joaquin Phoenix. It's done so well. Excellent cinematography from Roger Deakins. Excellent story from M. Night Shyamalan. Noah goes to confront Lucius. Lucius opens the door because Noah looks worried, like, hey, what's going on? Like, why are you upset? Why are you crying? Come talk to me. Noah has his hand in his pocket and he can barely get any words out. He doesn't know what to say. And so it cuts to Lucius looking at Noah and Noah looking at Lucius, and then you just hear a subtle shh. It's not much. And what I loved about this scene is that typically in movies, when you hear the unsheathing of the knife or sword, it's like a shink, it's like an audio dub. But here you didn't hear that. You didn't hear any kind of real stabbing sounds or anything like that. You just saw the faces. It was just emotional expression, and you could just look and see Lucius being caught so off guard and Noah just looking like a menace, not just stabbing Lucius one time. He stabbed him once. Now you could say that, he just was mentally insane. He didn't know what was going on, right? He was incapable of really understanding the faculties of his situation and his decisions. But he goes to the door and then runs back and stabs Lucius multiple times again. There's this evil intent, in my opinion. Yes, he struggled mentally, but at the same time, I believe Noah knew what he was doing. He was upset. Maybe more than likely, he liked Ivy Walker. He wanted to marry Ivy Walker. He was jealous of Lucius once he found out what had happened. And so he didn't know how to express or handle his jealousy and emotions, but to take it out on Lucius. And so as the scene progresses, you can see Noah sitting in a chair with blood on his hands, and he's happy, then he's crying, and he's drooling. And then people are saying, Noah, what's on your hands? And then the word gets out that there's blood on Noah's hands. Noah obviously won't say what he did, pregnant. So now everyone has to check their family, check on everyone to make sure that everyone's okay, because we don't know where this blood on Noah's hands came from. And here's where the drama starts. So Ivy Walker immediately, without question, runs to Lucius. Did she know? Did she have some type of intuition? Did she just want to check on him? She doesn't even think twice. She immediately runs to Lucius. And to me, the next scene is one of Bryce Dallas Howard's. It's just so good. She's just so phenomenal. She walks into the scene. Now, mind you, she's blind, right? And she has her walking stick and she's moving. She walks and she sees that Lucius's door is open. She's calling his name. He's not answering. She keeps walking forward, and she discovers Lucius's body. Lucius is lifeless, motionless. He's just on the floor like a cold piece of meat. And then someone walks by and sees Ivy hugging Lucius on the floor and tells everyone, hey, Lucius is on the floor, he's hurt. And so Edward Walker comes and Ivy just loses control. She just has a complete mental breakdown, realizing once her father tries to pull her away from Lucius, she's one of the lines I can remember, she's like, Papa, I cannot see his color. Essentially saying that the life had left him. The aura that was around Lucius had left him because she could no longer see his color. Enraged, she requests to see Noah. Now, Noah has never really seen the mean side of Ivy Walker. So Noah, who's been locked in a room because there's no jails in the town, there's no crime really. This is the first big crime that's happened there. Noah, who's been locked in a room, Ivy walks in, finds Noah, and just slaps him. Just whoosh. Noah has never experienced that before. He breaks down screaming, crying. Ivy walks away, and now the movie really gets into its third act. So Lucius is stabbed pretty bad. There's really nothing that can be done for him. Mind you, in the movie they talk about getting him medicine, but in the film, if you see the way that he was stabbed, he needs surgery. I mean, his intestines, everything. I would think, no, it's not just medicine and bandages. This guy probably has organ puncture and a lot of things. So realistically, if you look at us, if someone did try to start a village, modern medicine unfortunately makes a village impractical. But in the movie, they say that he needs a certain type of medicine to survive. And there's just drama because the elders have never faced this before, ever. And Ivy begs her father to go into the town. It's almost like a demand, like, if you don't let me go, I'm going to go. She is very adamant about going. Of course, she will respect her father's decision nonetheless, but she is very insistent upon going. And so her father says that, without telling the elders, says that she can go. Kristoff, which is Kitty's new husband, and another member get together to go with Ivy into the forest to go to the towns and get medicine to save Lucius's wife. However, before Ivy left, her father confessed something to her that he was not supposed to tell, and this is where we can really get into it. So Edward brought Ivy into a cellar where the creatures are stored. Yes, the creature mask and costumes and what they wear are stored in the cellar, which means what? It means that the creatures are not real. It was something that was made up just to keep the people of the village in fear so that they would not wander into the woods. Why is this? Well, we'll dive a little deeper later on. So now Ivy, who's going into the woods, knows the truth, which is why she says, I have these magic beings that will protect us. She knows the creatures aren't real, but she's also told that no one else can know what she knows. It's only because of a life and death circumstance that even Ivy was told the truth after all these years. So you have to imagine how she's feeling, knowing that her father and many other elders in the village have not only lied to her, but lied to everyone about the truth of the forest. And so now Ivy doesn't really have any fear going in, but the people who go in with her, who are wearing the safe color, which is yellow, they do have fear. And so they leave Ivy. These two men leave a blind woman in the woods alone. The fear has crippled them that much. That's what the brain can do. That's what the fear of indoctrination can do to these people. They would leave a blind girl in the woods alone to fend for herself and just run back to the village. And Ivy's still in the woods alone. Even though she knows that nothing's real, she's still blind. She can't see, and she has to go to a place that she's never been before based on river sounds and a path. It's insane when you really think about it, but her love for Lucius and her determination wouldn't stop her. So as we fast forward, Edward Walker comes out and admits what he's done. People in the town have a crisis. They start to say, how could you? This was formed. You know why this was formed, why the Covington Woods was formed, why the village was formed, to prevent the evils from the towns from getting into the village, to prevent what happened to all of their loved ones from happening in the village. And Edward explains, that he did what he had to do, and it's a humanity thing, and some of the elders are still upset and they just cannot forgive him. But some of the elders do say, well, we understand it, and if it ends, it ends. It was a good run, essentially, knowing that they could not keep the ruse up forever. So as we go back into the woods, Ivy Walker, by herself, she almost nearly dies, falling into some massive pit that's in the woods. Mind you, she's blind, okay? She only can go based on the other 4 senses that she has. And so she almost falls into this pit, and she manages to get herself up after that. And after she makes it out of the pit, she breaks her walking stick. But shortly after, she hears a mimicked sound. She breaks her stick, and then she hears a stick break. She knows that there shouldn't be anyone in the woods with her. The other 2 have left. And she also knows that the creatures aren't real, but yet she still senses danger. She can't see at all. And so she ends up being in the field of red, which doesn't mean anything anymore because she knows the truth, but she ends up being in the field of red, and she also ends up being faced by one of the creatures who isn't real. Now she can sense that the creature is there, but she doesn't know exactly where it is. So she immediately hides behind a tree, and she can hear the creature approaching her. Once she steps away, she looks and sees the creature looking at her. Then the creature charges at her and misses. And then it turns around and charges at her again, but Ivy remembers where she's standing, by the tree, which is by the pit that she almost fell and died in. So what she does is she faces the pit, she puts her arms out and turns her back to the creature. She uses her hearing to wait until the creature charges her again. Just before it charges her and gets to her, she moves out the way, evades the creature, and the creature falls into the pit, dying. Now the parents of Noah Percy come into the building where they were housing him, and they see that not only has he escaped, but he's escaped with one of the costume that the creatures wear. And as the scene cuts back, you can see Noah in the pit, looking confused as ever, looking up out of the pit at Bryce Dallas Howard in the creature costume, lying in the pit, dying. And so Ivy Walker has faced her greatest challenge thus far, and with Lucius rapidly approaching death, Ivy having beat the creature, she manages to run to the Covington Woods and town border. She hightails it, right? She takes a stick that is way too big to be a walking stick, and she could trip, fall. She is just hightailing it because she knows she's on the path. As we look back into the village, we can see some of the elders looking at that black box that was mentioned before, and they're looking at themselves. They pretty much came together and formed Covington Woods. Right now, Edward Walker's father was killed by a business partner. All of them have had horrors done to them by the people in the towns, and so they got together, they pulled their money together and formed the village, Covington Woods. They've made sure no planes can fly over the village. They've done everything to keep the rules up and to keep the children from getting out. And to keep people from getting in, they've established a security service. No one can go into these woods, okay? Planes can't fly over these woods, so people can look and say, well, what's that? There is just no idea for the people living in the village who were born there of what's on the outside world, and the people in the outside world have no clue what's going on in the village. So Ivy Walker hops over the fence. Again, this fence is like 12 feet tall, maybe 15 feet tall. She somehow manages to, I guess it's just determination, hop over the fence, and thankfully someone in the truck, one of the patrol guards, sees her, and he's like, hey, no one's supposed to be out here, what are you doing? And he immediately knows something is off with her. I don't know if he knows she's blind, but he can tell that she's not normal. And so Ivy's just saying, here, this is what I have, please, can you get this for me? Can you get this? Again, now mind you, Ivy's father sent her. It's so crazy. Ivy's father sent her into a town she's never been in with people who didn't even go with her. You would have think, well, at least he could have went with her in the middle of the night and they could have made up some lie or something. He just sent her off with these two guys to go to the town, and she was told that the people in the town are dangerous, but talking to him, she kind of realizes, hey, they're not that dangerous. So he goes and gets the medicine, and here you can see an M. Night cameo. Okay, he comes back with the ladder to get her over into the woods in the village, and Ivy doesn't have money. They don't know what money is, and so all she can offer is some type of watch, some type of golden watch or stop clock or something like that, right? Obviously no money. She ends up getting the medicine and rushing back to the village. And in the last scene, you can hear someone say that Ivy Walker has returned and she's killed one of the creatures in the woods. And so Noah's parents immediately know that, well, that's Noah and he's been killed in the woods. And she comes into the door and walks up to Lucius and says, Lucius, I've returned. Like the village, I mean, it's an amazing love story. It's really not it is a horror story, but the overarching theme is that it's a love story. It's determination to do something for the person you care for the person you would die for under the most insane circumstances, facing things you've never faced before, with fear breathing down your neck and you just having no idea what's going to happen. And it just goes to show the commitment that Ivy Walker had to risk everything. And even Edward Walker had in his daughter that had faith to risk everything to try and save the love of her life, Lucius Hunt. So what do you guys think about The Village? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This is Horror Lives Here. I'll see you in the next video.